Have you ever thought about giving up on your dreams? Maybe someone told you that they're too big, or that reality is too harsh for them to come true. It's common to hear that we should be realistic and abandon what seems impossible. But what if I told you that's the biggest lie you could ever believe? Yes, that's right. The world may try to convince you that dreaming is a waste of time. But I'm here to show you that giving up on your dreams is actually giving up on living life to the fullest. Dreaming is an act of courage, and many people don't understand the power of keeping their dreams alive, even when everything around them says otherwise. But believe me, the greatest winners in history weren't the ones with the best conditions, but those who dared to dream and persevered, even under the worst circumstances. You might be feeling alone, frustrated, or even questioning if it's worth continuing. I understand you, and that's exactly why you need to hear what I'm about to tell you. In this video, I'm going to show you that there's a higher power working in your favor, even if you can't see it yet. I'll teach you how to turn challenges into stepping stones to reach your goals, and how to align your dreams with a purpose that goes beyond what you can imagine. If you think you've heard everything about not giving up, get ready, because what you're going to discover here might just change your life forever. Dreaming is the fuel for the soul. When someone allows themselves to dream, they fill their life with purpose, creating a direction that guides them through unknown paths. However, when dreams cease, something within us also begins to die because we lose the reason to fight, to move forward. Just like a plant withers without water, our vitality fades without the prospect of a better future. Anyone who has ever given up on a dream knows how it corrodes the spirit, making life lose its flavor and causing hope to fade. That's why it's vital to keep our dreams alive and protected, because they are the essence of who we are and who we can become. But dreaming isn't enough. Those dreams need to be fed with action and determination. Reality often tries to convince us that dreaming is a waste of time, a luxury for the naive. How many times have we heard it's time to get real? But that's the voice of conformity, trying to trap us in a life without brightness. Dreams, no matter how grand or distant they may seem, are what drive us to overcome daily challenges. They remind us that we can be more, do more, achieve more. Every great achievement started with a dream that seemed impossible, but was pursued with courage. So, dreaming is more than just wishing for something. It's believing that it's possible. Dreaming is an act of faith where we place our trust in what we can't see yet, but know can become real. And in that act of faith, we find the strength to withstand adversities. When opposing winds try to knock us down, our dreams sustain us, keep us going, even when everything around us says to give up. It's this perseverance that leads us to grow, to take the next step, knowing that behind every challenge, there is an opportunity to get closer to our dreams. And when it comes to challenges, there's no clearer example than that of the prophet Habakkuk, who faced harsh realities but never abandoned hope. Reality can be relentless, and often it seems our dreams are unreachable in the face of the challenges we encounter. Habakkuk, one of the Old Testament prophets, understood this deeply. He lived in a time of great tribulation, where injustice and suffering prevailed. Amidst all this, he found himself questioning whether his dreams of a better world could really come true. Who hasn't felt that way? That moment when we look around and wonder if it's worth continuing to dream when the world keeps showing us otherwise. Habakkuk, like many of us, confronted the harsh reality of a corrupt and disordered society. He questioned how his dreams of justice and peace could survive in such a hostile environment. This internal struggle is something many of us face daily when reality seems to crush our ideals. However, it's precisely in these moments that we need to remember that dreams aren't guarantees, but promises that require faith and perseverance. Habakkuk's story teaches us that even when everything around us collapses, the true dreamer persists. Not because reality is easy, but because they know reality can be transformed. The prophet, in his search for answers, shows us that dreams are tested by the fire of adversity. He didn't run away from reality. On the contrary, he faced it head-on, with all its imperfections. And that's where true strength lies, not in denying difficulties, but in confronting them with the conviction that dreams are stronger than obstacles. Habakkuk didn't give up, and instead of letting reality demotivate him, he turned his doubt into dialogue with God, seeking understanding and direction. And so, he inspires us to do the same, especially when our own dreams seem distant. After all, it's on this journey of questioning that we discover the depth of our faith and the strength to keep going. Habakkuk wasn't different from many of us. Faced with the injustice he saw around him, he turned to God with a heart full of questions. "Why do you allow the wicked to prosper while the righteous suffer?" he asked, echoing a sentiment that transcends centuries. If this message is resonating with you, don't wait. Subscribe to the channel now, turn on notifications, and share this video with someone who needs a word of encouragement. Together, we can build a community of faith and support. In moments of pain and confusion, it's natural to question God's goodness and wonder where He is in the midst of suffering. Habakkuk dared to express these doubts, not out of a lack of faith, but because his faith was deep enough to seek answers. This sincere dialogue with God is the first step in understanding that our dreams are not ignored, but rather part of a greater plan. Habakkuk's questioning reflects a universal experience, the apparent silence of God in times of crisis. Who hasn't felt like their prayers were going unheard, that God was distant, especially when everything seemed to be falling apart? Habakkuk shows us that it's normal to have doubts, that questioning is part of the spiritual journey. However, he also teaches us that these questions should be brought to God, because it's only in His presence that we find the peace and wisdom to understand what lies beyond our comprehension. This is the moment when faith is refined and our dreams are purified by the fire of questioning. God isn't offended by our questions. On the contrary, He invites us to dialogue with Him. Habakkuk didn't receive an easy answer, but he received one that led him to a deeper understanding of God's purpose. Just like Habakkuk, we may not immediately understand God's reasons, but by questioning Him, we draw closer to Him and to His plans for our lives. As we seek answers, God reveals to us that suffering can have a purpose, and that our dreams, even if temporarily obscured, are part of a larger design. And it's in this understanding that we find the strength to keep going, even when the answers don't come right away. It's hard to accept that suffering can have a purpose, but this is a truth that Habakkuk himself discovered on his journey. As he confronted his doubts and brought his questions to God, he began to understand that suffering, as painful as it is, can be a tool for spiritual growth. Often, it's through trials that we are shaped, refined, and prepared to achieve our dreams. Habakkuk realized that even when everything seemed lost, God was working in ways he couldn't see, preparing him for a greater purpose. This shows us that, in the midst of pain, there is a lesson to be learned a preparation for something greater that is yet to come. The idea that suffering may be necessary to achieve our dreams is not easy to accept, but it is fundamental to our faith journey. When we face difficulties, it's natural to want to flee from them, but it's precisely in these moments that God invites us to trust in His plan. Habakkuk teaches us that suffering is not the end, but rather a step on the path to something greater. Just as gold is purified by fire, our dreams often need to pass through the heat of adversity to become real. God doesn't give us more than we can bear, but He uses these difficulties to strengthen us and draw us closer to Him, revealing that suffering can be the fertile ground where our dreams flourish. Even though suffering is a harsh reality, it has the power to transform us. Habakkuk discovered that as he went through difficulties, he became stronger, wiser, and closer to God. He understood that suffering wasn't a punishment, but a preparation for the greater plans that God had for him. Like Habakkuk, we are called to see beyond the pain and to trust that, in the end, everything will work out for our good. The dreams that God places in our hearts are not destroyed by suffering. On the contrary, they are strengthened and perfected. And it's with this new perspective that we become capable of continuing to dream, even in the midst of storms, knowing that God is in control and that the best is yet to come. In moments of great trial, it's common to feel like our strength is running out. Habakkuk lived through this intensely when it seemed that God's answer would never come and the circumstances only worsened. However, he chose to stand firm, nurturing his faith and hope, even in the midst of darkness. This choice is the essence of resilience, not giving up, even when everything around suggests otherwise. Resilience is a force that keeps us standing, that makes us believe that despite adversities, God is working in our favor, even in ways invisible to our eyes. And it's this persistent faith that allows us to keep dreaming, even in the worst storms. Habakkuk teaches us that resilience is born from unwavering trust in God, and this trust brings hope. When the world tells us that it's impossible, that our dreams will never come true, we need to remember that God has the power to turn the impossible into reality. He specializes in making the unlikely happen, but to do so, He requires from us a faith that doesn't waver with circumstances. By standing firm in his faith, Habakkuk found the hope that sustained him, and this hope did not disappoint him. When God's answer finally came, it brought with it the fulfillment of a dream that seemed distant. This shows us that while waiting is difficult, it is not in vain. Hope is what keeps us alive while we wait. Habakkuk shows us that by keeping hope alive, he was able to see beyond the chaos, perceiving the divine purpose in everything. When we are resilient, we not only endure difficulties, but learn to grow through them. Hope is the light that guides us through the darkness, reminding us that no matter the circumstances, God is in control and His timing is perfect. Habakkuk learned to trust in this timing, knowing that God was working in his favor, even when everything seemed lost. And this unwavering trust is what inspires us to keep dreaming, believing that in due time, God will make everything happen according to His good will. Trusting in God is an act of faith that goes beyond appearances and immediate results. Habakkuk understood this deeply in his spiritual journey. When everything around him seemed out of control, he chose to place his trust not in circumstances, but in the unchanging character of God. This kind of trust isn't shaken by what we see or feel, but is anchored in the certainty that God is in control, regardless of what happens around us. This trust transforms our perspective, allowing us to see situations in a way that transcends human understanding. It's as if by trusting in God, we're seeing life through His eyes, where everything is part of a greater plan. Habakkuk shows us that trusting in God doesn't mean ignoring reality, but rather believing that God is acting, even when things don't make sense. It's a call to mature faith, which doesn't depend on immediate results or visible signs. Often, we're tempted to trust only what we can see, but true trust in God is the one that persists, even in silence. Habakkuk chose to trust in God, not because he understood everything, but because he knew that God understood. And this is the essence of faith: to surrender our worries, our dreams, and our lives into God's hands, trusting that He will do what's best, even when we don't see the path ahead. Trusting in God is also an exercise in surrender. Habakkuk teaches us that when we surrender our fears, doubts, and dreams to God, we're saying that we trust Him above all else. And this surrender isn't passive, it's active and intentional, requiring from us a posture of faith that perseveres, even in the face of the greatest uncertainties. Habakkuk learned that trust in God is rewarded not only with the fulfillment of dreams, but with the peace that comes from knowing we're in the hands of the one who controls all things. And this peace is what allows us to live with confidence, knowing that in due time, God will lead us to the realization of our dreams according to His perfect will. The concept of divine judgment can be unsettling for many because it carries the idea of punishment and correction. However, Habakkuk offers us a deeper and more redemptive view of this judgment. He realized that God's judgment wasn't just a way to repay evil, but also a means to correct and align the hearts of His people with His purposes. Habakkuk understood that sometimes the suffering and difficulties we face are part of this correction process, where God, in His infinite wisdom, guides us back to the right path. This type of judgment isn't destructive, but rather restorative, shaping us so that we can achieve the dreams He has for us. Habakkuk shows us that divine judgment is an expression of God's love, who desires to see His children living according to His will. When we are confronted with difficulties that seem unjust, it could be an invitation to reflect on our choices and attitudes. Just as a father corrects his child so that he grows in wisdom, God uses judgment to correct us and guide us toward a path of spiritual growth. This process can be painful, but it's necessary for us to align with God's greater purpose. Habakkuk understood that by accepting and learning from divine judgment, he was being prepared for something much greater than he could have imagined. Divine judgment, when viewed in this light, becomes an act of grace. Habakkuk understood that by allowing God to correct him, he was being prepared for the realization of his dreams. This perspective transforms the way we see difficulties and challenges in our lives. Instead of resisting judgment, we are called to accept it as an opportunity for growth and renewal. God doesn't judge us to destroy us, but to build us up, to shape us into the image of His Son, and to prepare us to live the dreams He has planted in our hearts. And it's in this process of correction that we discover that by aligning with God's will, our dreams become not just possible, but inevitable. Perseverance and faith is the key that unlocks the doors to the realization of our dreams, even when everything around us seems to be falling apart. Habakkuk teaches us that in the face of difficulties, what sustains us is the certainty that God is in control. He lived in a time of great turbulence, where injustice and violence prevailed. But even so, he chose to keep his faith unshaken. This perseverance isn't the result of blind faith, but of a deep trust in God, which transcends circumstances. Habakkuk shows us that when we persevere in faith, we allow God to work in our favor, turning impossible situations into testimonies of his power. Persevering in faith means remaining faithful, even when the results we expect don't materialize immediately. Habakkuk experienced what many of us face: the delay in God's answers. And this wait can be challenging because we are tempted to give up, to seek alternatives that seem quicker or easier. However, it is precisely in this waiting that our faith is strengthened and refined. Habakkuk understood that true faith doesn't depend on the speed of answers, but on the trust that God always keeps his promises, in the right time and the right way. This perseverance equips us to face each day with renewed hope, knowing that God's faithfulness never fails. Habakkuk's story reminds us that perseverance in faith is rewarded. He saw the manifestation of God's power amidst chaos, proving that even in the most desperate situations, God is at work. When we persevere, we become living witnesses that God is faithful and that he never abandons us. This certainty gives us the strength we need to continue, even when the road is difficult. Habakkuk inspires us not to give up, to keep our eyes fixed on God, and to trust that he is working in our favor, even when we don't see immediate results. And so, this perseverance prepares us for the final and central point of our journey: to love God above all, trusting that he will fulfill our dreams according to his good will. Loving God is the foundation of our entire faith journey, and Habakkuk understood this in its essence. He shows us that our only true responsibility in life is to love God, trust him, and obey his will, regardless of the circumstances we face. When we put God first, our dreams align with his plans, and it's then that we discover he fulfills our desires in ways we could never have imagined. Loving God means surrendering everything to him: our worries, our fears, our hopes, and above all, our dreams. It's a love that transforms us and leads us to live in full confidence that God is always working for our good. This love for God isn't just an emotion, but a decision we make daily, choosing to put him at the center of our lives. Habakkuk teaches us that by loving God, we position ourselves to receive the best he has for us. When we love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength, we become capable of withstanding any storm because we know he is with us every step of the way. This love gives us a new perspective, where challenges are no longer obstacles, but opportunities to see God's hand in action. And so, we live not only in the expectation of our dreams being fulfilled, but in the certainty that they will be, according to God's good will. Habakkuk discovered that by loving God above all, he was actually preparing himself to receive the blessings that God had reserved for him. This unconditional love puts us in a position of total trust, where we can rest in the promise that God always does what's best for us. We don't need to fight to make our dreams come true. We just need to love God, trust him, and obey his commands. He, in his infinite wisdom and goodness, takes care of the rest. And it's in this surrender that we find peace, knowing that God's love is what sustains us and guides us towards the fulfillment of all our dreams, in the perfect way and at the perfect time. At the end of this journey, we are invited to reflect on our lives and on how we've been putting God first. Habakkuk taught us that even in the face of the greatest adversities, it's possible to trust and love God with all our being, knowing that He is always working for our good. Now it's time to make a choice. Will we let challenges pull us away from our dreams? Or will we surrender everything into God's hands, trusting that in His infinite wisdom, He will do what's best for us? This is the moment of decision, where you are called to renew your commitment to love God above all else and to seek to live a life that reflects this priority. At this point, it's not enough just to understand what's been said. It's necessary to apply this knowledge to your daily life. Think about how you can show your love for God today. It could be through a sincere prayer, an act of kindness towards someone in need, or a simple gesture of gratitude for everything He has done for you. When you put God first, the other things in your life begin to align. He knows the desires of your heart, and if you trust Him, He will take care of fulfilling them in ways that go beyond your imagination. Don't miss the opportunity to draw closer to God and live according to the purpose He has for you. Let's pray together now. I ask God to bless each person who has followed this message, to illuminate their paths and to strengthen their faith. May their dreams be renewed, and may hope in God be revitalized in every heart. Lord, take control of our lives, guide us according to your will, and help us to trust in you in all things. May we love God with all our heart, with all our soul, and with all our strength, and may everything we do bring glory to your name. Amen. Lord, you know the deepest desires of our hearts, those dreams we often keep silent out of fear or insecurity. We ask you to give us the courage to dream again, to believe that in you, all things are possible. Pour out your wisdom upon us to discern your timing and purpose, and grant us the patience to wait for your perfect will. May no obstacle be too great for our faith to waver, and may we see every challenge as an opportunity for growth and drawing closer to you. We also ask, Lord, that you renew our strength to persevere, even when the answers take time to come. May your Holy Spirit guide us in every decision. Empower us to move forward with confidence, and may our faith be a living testimony of your power. May we find in you the peace that surpasses all understanding, and may our lives be a reflection of your love and goodness. Amen. We've come to the end of this journey, but the real challenge begins now. How will you apply everything you've learned? Are you willing to take the next step toward your dreams, even if the road seems difficult? I challenge you to reflect on the choices you've made so far and ask yourself, am I really putting God at the center of my dreams? Am I persevering in faith, trusting that He is working in my favor? Because in the end, what really matters is how you're going to act from now on. Remember, change doesn't happen overnight, but it starts with a decision. The decision not to give up, to keep believing, even when everything seems to be against you. I invite you to apply these principles in your life, to put God first, and to watch how He transforms your dreams into reality. And don't forget, you are not alone on this journey. The community we're building here is to support you, to help you stay strong day after day. If this message spoke to your heart, if you felt that something here can help you move forward, then subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and join us on this journey. Each new video is an opportunity for you to learn more, to strengthen yourself, to draw even closer to your dreams and to God. Together, let's turn our faith into action and see the miracles happen in our lives. God bless you.